challenges with integrity, grace, and compassion. To paraphrase Walter Isaacson, the author of the Steve Jobs biography, you're all here to put a dent in the universe. You do not accept this world order as it is today, but want to lean in and make a positive impact on our world. These are the values that we look for in the students of the University of Maryland School of Medicine. But if that isn't enough, and I'm putting you on a pedestal, we're going to expect a lot, I'm sure. But if that's not enough, you all have another attribute, and that's that all of you are bold. So one of my favorite quotes, written by William Hutchinson Murray, who attributed the couplet to the German poet and philosopher Goethe, "Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it." And I love this quote because what I lack in genius, I can make up in boldness. But to sit in this room, you all have boldly embraced uncertainty, a life of change, stress, discipline, and commitment to a deep understanding of science and humanism, to embrace what you don't know, to find your passion in the many opportunities in medicine, to live with commitment and spend most of your living hours with and participating in the lives of our most vulnerable citizens, and to stand up and confront injustice and inequity to support all members of our society. And I think above all, you have accepted your own vulnerability and committed yourselves to a career that demands lifelong learning, constant self-reflection, and external feedback. And these attributes allow you to evolve and improve as a physician and healer over the course of a career. So being bold is going to mean getting out of your comfort zone all of the time, to step into the unknown with every new class, every clinical rotation, and every new patient relationship. And a special part of being bold in medicine relates to shared decisions between you as a physician and your patient about potentially life-saving interventions. Together, you're going to have to make bold calls about treatment and live with the outcomes of the most difficult shared decision and even the direct harm caused by what you recommend and what you do. Whether it's that first deep cut of the scalpel, or in my case as a critical care doctor, making a decision that's the right time to put someone to sleep and place an endotracheal breathing tube in a patient struggling for breath on a Friday evening, often knowing they may never wake up to see their family again. It may be starting a chemotherapeutic regimen that we know will cause many side effects and suffering, all in the hope of controlling cancer growth and possibly extending life. In academic medical centers like the University of Maryland, we may recommend experimental therapies that fail, like the infusion of genetically engineered stem cells and T cells that we hope and pray will cure our patients, may also lead to unknown side effects and will certainly advance science and medicine for all patients in the future. So I was in the ICU last week on the 7th floor of the University of Maryland Medical Center. The deans try to keep me out of the ICU, but every once in a while they let me there. And it was the first week of the month with new trainees. So our interns were on their first week. We had a fourth-year medical student, Matt Wilhide. I don't know, is Matt here? He's shy. Incredible fourth-year student doing his sub-internships. If you want to know how to do a sub-I, you've got to hunt him down. And we had a first-week second-year resident running the team and a first-week pulmonary fellow. And everyone was bold. Everyone worked harder than ever to know everything about their complex patients, reading, studying, triple-checking medications and orders, really working as a team that so together we never missed anything. So on Friday, after a week of the rotation, the students and residents asked for feedback. Now, one of the amazing parts of medicine is that we're all on a constant journey of self-reflection and improvement. With deep humility, we ask for feedback on how to improve after every rotation. As a dean and after 30 years as a critical care medicine attending, I still get written feedback from all the students and residents on service. So Matt, be nice to me. And I read and reflect on all these comments. So at the end of the rotation, everyone asked me for advice on how to improve. What could they do to succeed in their future? And with the white coat ceremony coming up in a week, I reflected on what lessons I would have wanted to hear at the beginning of my medical career. What things did I do well? What things should I have optimized? So I'll just share with you in this moment 2 thoughts that I hope you'll carry with you. And you can think of this maybe as advice that I would have given a younger self 30 years ago that have somehow withstood those 3 decades of time. So the first advice is simple, but it's significant. And that is, build your base of knowledge around mechanism of disease. From day one at the University of Maryland, you are going to be building a strong foundation on which a career will rise. Think about the care, effort, resources that go into building the foundation of a skyrise tower. The foundation that you're going to build over these next 4 years will determine your success as a physician, a scientist, an educator, and a leader over the next 5 decades. So a strong foundation of mechanism is going to help you understand, learn, develop lasting memory of clinical medicine, and prepare you for changes that science is going to bring to the practice of medicine. For our skyrise in medicine, the foundational knowledge is molecular biology and genetics, immunology, biochemistry, anatomy, and physiology. We go back to these bedrocks, this foundation, to frame added knowledge and learning. So understanding why a disease happens at a foundational mechanistic level is more effective than relying on pure rote memory, which is weak and will be forgotten over time. This approach matters more than ever today because I'm sorry to say your brains are working now better than they ever will work for the rest of your lives. You are sponges and you've got to take advantage of this mental agility. So it's the right time for you to invest in this foundation. Just last week in the ICU, as an example of this, we saw a 43-year-old patient that was actually taken care of by Matt. And this patient had a very rare disease. This young man was living a normal life with mild asthma when he became increasingly short of breath. He was misdiagnosed for months as having pneumonia, and he was treated with multiple courses of antibiotics, which failed to improve his condition. So eventually he had a CAT scan, which is like an X-ray, but we're sort of slicing through the lung and looking at the inside of the alveoli. And it had a remarkable appearance. It looked like pulmonary edema or fluid in the lungs, which should have rapidly resolved. It also had this very unique appearance with ground glass opacities in the alveoli, in the air sacs, but with thick septal lines around the ground glass. It almost looked like flagstones in pavement, and we call this clinically crazy pavement. He then had a lung lavage and a biopsy at an outside hospital, which made the diagnosis of what this rare disease is. Does anybody know outside of our faculty? Huh? Pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. I think I heard that. So this is a disease. So this disease has always fascinated me, and when I was your age, we had no idea the molecular mechanism of this disease, so we just memorized the clinical findings. So it's caused by an accumulation in the lung airspace. It's a surfactant, which is a fatty proteinaceous molecule produced by the lung cells that at the right concentration keep our fragile alveoli open, allowing for gas exchange. And as the lung airspace is filled with too much surfactant, it impairs oxygen exchange from the lung to the blood, and the patient becomes more and more short of breath. Somehow I'm missing a page. The other advice, always stay humble. The last time I gave this speech, the sound went off. So you may have to rescue me if I lose another page. So essentially the patient was drowning in their own lung surfactant. Now the cause of this, as I said, was unknown, was I young. We just had to memorize this as a syndrome. So then there was a key basic science discovery over that time, that white blood cells that are responsible for gobbling up and clearing that surfactant, called alveolar macrophages, do not function well. It turns out that most patients have autoantibodies that inhibit a cytokine called granulocyte monocyte colony stimulating factor that drives the macrophages to do their job, gobbling up their surfactant and also clearing certain bacteria. So when you think about this mechanism now, suddenly you can kind of understand why it's happening, and it can help you to remember how to diagnose the disease without a lung biopsy. We now send antibodies against GM-CSF. We now know that maybe there's a therapy, and it turns out a drug has been developed, recombinant GM-CSF, that you can inhale, that activates the macrophages and helps them clear the surfactant. And there was just an article published this year in the New England Journal of Medicine showing that the therapy works. These patients also develop very rare infections that are related to macrophage dysfunction. And if there's any infectious disease doctors in the room, do you know the rare infections that these patients get? Smart not to guess. Nocardia and atypical mycobacterium. So you have to know to look for these infections in your patients. So all of this is hard to remember, but easier if you understand the central mechanism of disease related to autoimmune deficiency of GM-CSF and normal macrophage function. So as you move to the clinic over the next 4 years, you're going to have an opportunity to deeply experience your patients' journeys, their clinical presentations. You're going to be able to integrate that experience with foundational knowledge. From adult learning theory, we know that laying down long-term memory and recall is best achieved by data input from all our senses and built upon an organized structure and foundation. We remember the most by listening, hearing, smelling, discussing, reading, and thoughtfully integrating the clinical world onto the foundation and mechanism of disease. So this strength of knowledge will empower you and give you and your patients confidence. It will serve your patients well even when their diagnosis is untreatable. William Osler, who's considered the father of medicine, practiced right here in Baltimore at the turn of the century. And he was considered one of the absolute best physicians of his time in the world. And just think that at that time, he had no antibiotics. He had virtually no therapies outside rare curative surgery and opioids. All he had really was knowledge, but he could provide his patients and their family with a command or control over the unknown through diagnosis, prognosis, and compassion. So my second piece of advice is to embrace your humility and your humanity. And I think you're going to hear from other speakers more about this today. There are few worlds like medicine, especially working in a major academic medical center like the University of Maryland. Many of us have grown up in segregated worlds, segregated by race, nationality, income level, religion, and culture, even the level of academic competitiveness. Many of us come from other countries and cultures. And while our major academic medical centers represent only 5% of all hospitals in America, we train 70% of clinical providers. We take care of 30% of uninsured vulnerable patients in America. We take care of 30% of all Medicare patients in America. We're home to 70% of all NIH funding, which has sponsored 99% of all FDA-approved medications in the last 2 decades. We support 4% of the US gross domestic product and 4% of the best jobs in America. We're melting pots of diversity and inclusivity. We bring together people and patients from all strata of income, from the houseless to the world's wealthiest. And we're all eventually here as patients, at our most vulnerable time in life, struggling with the great equalizers, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and epidemic and opportunistic infections. So to me, this is a time to really embrace your role as a humanist and humbly engage at a deep level with your patients. You have a special ticket that no one else has to share your patients' every secret and share their most challenging experiences of their lives. So embrace this and get in there. Some of this will take practice and effort. It's not natural. I try very hard when I'm in rounds in the ICU to make sure I reach out and touch my patients and their families, especially if we come from different cultures or life experiences. And it can be very awkward to just cross the small physical distances and reach out, placing an arm around someone, shuffling next to them, putting your arm around them. Sometimes you have to squat next to the chair, or you have to pull in a chair between a bed and a wall. And I've always been surprised at how often when I make this contact, people suddenly break down, sobbing, reaching out for an embrace, even when they don't know me. And it always reminds me that we're symbols and the reality for them of hope and compassion. So please challenge yourselves to cross these cultural and physical distances with a kind word and a loving touch, and learn about your patients and experience their lived experience. So in the 5th century BC, this is not new advice or knowledge, Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, stated, "It is believed by experienced doctors that the heat which oozes out of the hand on being applied to the sick is highly salutary. It has often appeared while I've been soothing my patients as if there was a singular property in my hand to pull and draw away from the affected parts, aches, and diverse impurities, by laying my hands upon the place and extending my fingers towards it. Thus it is known to some of the learned that health may be implanted in the sick by certain gestures and by contact." So I hope this advice has been helpful. Build your foundation and mechanism of disease. I hate to say it, everything they're going to teach you in the next 2 years matters. And embrace your humility and humanism and reach out. So I'll just close by more formally considering the symbolism of the white coat you're about to wear. To me, the white coat symbolizes a calling. This is more than a job. It's a sacred embrace of service, leadership, optimism, and humanism. You will feel and experience and do everything you can to make that positive dent in the universe. Embarking in a career in medicine can allow a person to fully engage humanity in the most ennobling ways. We draw on the sciences, humanities, and even business. Donning your white coat symbolically indicates your entrance into a sacred and ancient fraternity or sorority that will mark the rest of your lives in a way that no other occupation can. By donning the white coat, you prepare for a career of lifelong learning where you strive to be better and better as physicians and physician scientists and humanists, even as the gray hairs finally start to appear. And when those days are hard, and they will be, you'll be part of a family. You'll embrace your vulnerability. You'll ask for help and support from me, your faculty mentors, your family, your friends. And we're all supporters on this mission that you will lead. And so to our medical students, who I hope are feeling the consequence of the right white coat. Remember that whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And Godspeed on your rarefied and consequential journey.